And here we are for an episode of Dualistic Unity Raw. We are already off to the races this morning. Andrew has had some Instagram comments that I have found quite funny. And so we've been responding to these comments. And the overarching theme of these comments is basically a resent for Andrew just kind of working his way through life, having a good time, not stressing, not working like stupid hard to make himself into more. His general philosophy of you are just good enough the way you are is so nonchalant and laissez-faire, and you're just justifying giving up, Andrew. You're just justifying giving up on life because you are not trying to be more. And it was such an interesting comment thread. I encourage you to check it out if you're on Instagram and it happens to be today and you're listening to this. It's interesting because the entire point is only that, and it's not even about Andrew. That's the funniest part. See, Andrew, he works very hard. We both work very hard at this podcast. When we're not on here recording, we work really hard, and we really do our best to offer things for free as often as we can, or at least for a really small, for a low amount whenever we do have to charge. But this person's going off about how, Andrew, you are taking advantage of people by, making so much money online and just floating through life as a guru and all this shit. And what's funny is that you work harder than most of the people I've met in my life. Like, you work hard, but nobody knows that. And this person doesn't even want to know that. They just want to make a bunch of assumptions that you are just eating gummies all the time, floating around through life, taking advantage of people, not working a day, right? And just telling people that they can do the same thing. And what's funny is that that's not your message. That's never been your message. But this person wants to make it sound like that. And the simple reason why is that they don't enjoy what they do. They don't enjoy what they do. To them, the grind is necessary. If I'm not struggling uphill, if I'm not working all the time, if I'm not, constantly being productive and looking at myself as on the path to becoming more, then I'm not. Then I'm nothing. And that's it. And so there's no enjoyment in that. That whole journey is fucking dreadful. It really is. And I know, because I did it. I was on it. And you know how I felt when I would meet people who just kind of like skimmed through life, making it look easy? I felt fucking pissed off. And it had nothing to do with them and everything to do with the fact that I was making it hard on myself in a lot of ways. And this person said it perfectly when they're like, well, that's what life is all about. You have to struggle to be fulfilled. You have to struggle to become something. And you can just see right there the consequence of that, because then you're never enough. There's always pressure. And what's worse, you're always measuring your progress according to your assumptions of everyone else. Whereas you can just be fulfilled here and now. You are enough. Now go see what you're capable of. Judgment and shame don't have to enter into this. They really don't. And yet, when I asked this person why they believe judgment and shame are the only real motivators, they actually said, I never said anything about judgment and shame. I just said that you're not as good a person if you're not being as productive, which was the original comment. So there is the judgment and shame. But do you see the cognitive dissonance? If we use the words judgment and shame, I look terrible. So I don't want to use those words. I would rather justify this in a different way entirely. And so the remainder of the comments after that were just backpedaling of, I didn't say that you can't have a positive attitude towards things. I was just saying that, you should be out there doing stuff too. It's like, nobody said you shouldn't be out there doing stuff, just that you are enough now. Now go do stuff. But because they aren't enjoying their life, that's an affront, because you're challenging their strategy for existence. And as long as they're invested in it, it must be the right way. And everybody else is falling short of that bar.
And so you can spend your entire life on that track of getting to a point in which you're fulfilled, and so striving for it every moment along the way, investing focused on working on assumptions about yourself that aren't enough or aren't good enough or aren't whole or aren't complete. And that is a way, like, this woman, she can spend her life striving to get to that spot. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's like investing into this thing that isn't going anywhere. It's like continuing to walk on a treadmill thinking that it's adding something to yourself. It's just a continuation of assumptions, shifting assumptions as you go. Whereas, the experience of being fulfilled in yourself, realizing that you're fulfilled in yourself right now, allows you to actually do things for more of yourself. Like, until then, everything is so focused. It's like you can spend your whole life striving to become something in order to become whole, complete, on a track that never is fulfilled. Or you can recognize that that cup that you've been trying to fill with the hole in it is actually already full. Like, there's nothing to fill there. And then you stop focusing in on filling that cup at all times, and all of these other options come into play. Like, all of these other ways you could spend your life and do things and utilize your energy come into play. You start to realize, oh my gosh, there is more energy. Because trust me, I've had my fair shake at that side of the shame and the guilt and the beating up and the should and should do this, should do that. And I can tell you, even just in very recent experience, that letting go of the idea and the weight and the certainty that I'm doing something wrong or incorrectly or not enough or blah, 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 all of a sudden it's like this weight drops and it's like, oh my God, I have so much more energy to do so much more things. Like, I was actually sucking at my own energy as I focus on any perception of myself, like any thought about myself, any investment in how I'm doing is like filling up a fucking inflatable tub and poking a hole in it as you're walking around filling it up. You're never going to get to that amount. Like, you can never utilize your capabilities as you're focusing in on yourself. And as soon as there's a and even the positive focus on yourself, feeling good about yourself, is still a focus on yourself. It's sucking at that energy that's there. Like, it's still sucking at any focus on yourself. So it's any thought about yourself, idea about yourself that you believe is the truth whatsoever, and the focus on it and the reinforcement of it, and the thought that it is actually what it is and that does exist in the way that you think it does, sucks that energy away. And so, and it's like I'm just realizing, oh my God, there's like another energy pool over here that has nothing to do with me focusing on any degree of how I'm doing. Because even when I'm feeling more energized, as soon as there's oh, how am I doing? Is this enough? Is this enough? Is this enough? And then it's like suppress, suppress, suppress. And it's like, no, I don't. You can just keep going, keep doing it. And it's more, I mean, it's fun. It's way more fun. It's so much more fun. And I'm starting to get more of that feeling of, like, at night, like last night I fell asleep doing some stuff, and then I was like, oh, I should go to bed. And I was like, yeah, I don't really want to. And I stayed up another 2 hours editing a video. And I was like, this is cool. Like, I don't have this rigidity of like my schedule and my things. Even that is a farce. And I know I'm lucky to be able to say, I know people have much more, rigid, structured days throughout their day, but we have a structure to ours as well to some degree. But the fluidity between days, like, it isn't quite as rigid as we perceive it to be. And a lot of the structures of our day and the things we should be doing relative to what we are doing are self-created. They are just maintained by me continuing to think that that's like the right way for things to be, and so much investment in false certainty and control. And then as soon as it seems like things aren't going according to plan, it feels like, losing that control, and then judgment steps in. But if there isn't the idea of that control to begin with, then there isn't so much concern, as it feels like, you're changing, things are shifting, things are moving. You're not, relying upon such a set schedule or, a right way to do things, the rigidity of the correct way. It's just like you're allowing things to play out a little bit more seamlessly with a little less thought, and therefore way more energy.
It's funny because, as you know, been a coach for a while, and I've coached people not just in life coaching, but business coaching, entrepreneurship, things like that. And every entrepreneur, every budding entrepreneur I've ever met has always come to a point in their own inner mentality where they just wanted to have more faith in themselves. And so as a result of that, they went towards entrepreneurship. But what they very quickly find is that there's no more 8-hour day in entrepreneurship. It's your life. It's your job. This is your project. It's a all-encompassing thing. And so for a long time, it's just all in everything. And you're putting all this time into it. But then you start to figure out, like, I like working at night more than in the day. So all of a sudden you change your sleep schedule a bit. You take an afternoon nap, you work in the evening instead, but your schedule becomes more fluid as a result of you changing your environment because you're having more faith in yourself. You know, a large part of why we have these work days is because we're putting our faith in the business, in the structure that it's relying on. We put it in the product maybe that they're making, or in the service that they offer, or just in the fact that they're willing to give us a check month to month. There's security in that, and in that we have to live according to somebody else's clock. We have to live according to somebody else's schedule. And so I think it kind of goes hand in hand. Like, if you really want to get away from that need to be on someone else's schedule, you got to leap, right? But that means you got to take over the full clock yourself. Now it's all on you. 24 hours a fucking day. It's on you. So now you have to set, when do you have to be productive? When should you relax? Because relaxing is a big part of this. Like, Andrew, you know, as well as do our listeners, that I have a tendency of going a long time without sleeping. I'll sleep very little, and I'll just go for a very long time, and I'll get a lot of shit done. And you can always dip into that pool of enthusiasm. As you've noticed, it's not about trying to be productive. It's about the fact that I can keep going. Why not? I'll sleep eventually. Over time, what I've realized is that you can do that, but your body's still aware that you're staying up for a long period of time. And so it's important to fluctuate. It's not about always working like that all the time. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Sometimes it's about taking a little extra nap. Sometimes maybe get a whole 12 hours sleep just because you haven't been sleeping much throughout the week, because you were getting things done, because you were, in fact, participating more in your 24-hour schedule, as it were. I like to look at that more than working, participating more in your 24-hour schedule. But in that state of mind, doing yoga, going for a walk, hanging out with friends, going for a beer, playing pool, whatever it might be, those are just as important as the hours that you're working. But we don't tend to think about that when we're working for another person, right? Or working for another company. We're like, those are the important hours. And the rest of the time, okay, now I just got to try and relax and get shit done, blah, 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 blah. It just changes our whole perspective on everything. It really does. This is one of the reasons I like having a fluid schedule. Our schedule here is actually pretty fluid outside of our group schedule, which we try to maintain, and all of our episodes and whatnot. I'm not gonna lie. There's occasions where we'll have a break for 2 hours. I'll just go take a nap. You know, I'll take a nap. Why? So I can stay up later on tonight, maybe. You know, or just to take a fucking nap. But it's really just choosing for you. And not everybody's comfortable with that, because admittedly, and this is a problem that a lot of kids have when they leave traditional schooling to go into homeschooling, say when they're a teenager. At first, there's no drive to do anything because they've always been pushed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That I definitely resonate with that. But and it can so quickly turn into an excuse too. And I'm well aware of that. It's like, oh yeah, I've been through the system and it fucked me up and now I can't choose for myself. It's like, oh yeah, you can keep telling yourself that story, but once you recognize it, it's like, fucking do something with it, motherfucker. So but it is funny because even with that, there is, there's just certain, and it comes down to false certainty every time, but there's ideas like, for me, when I'm being on my phone still has like a negative undertone, even though like sometimes I'll be sitting there, I'll be like, damn, I've been on my phone for a while. And I'm like, but what was I doing on it? I was editing a video. I was responding to comments. I was getting back to DMs, like that there, but there's still a part. It's kind of like a stigma, like the stigma with weed. And so it's just that everything's kind of informing everything. And if you're finding, focus in something and enthusiasm in something, there's not necessarily guarantee, especially with what we're doing. There's not a guarantee of how anything is going to play out or what's going to hit or what's not. And so there's just the willingness to kind of keep going and doing shit without the check-ins so often, like without so many goddamn check-ins with yourself and perceived measurement. Cause like I can't even know how things are playing out or how things are going ever. And as soon as I feel like I do, it's like, then that becomes the focus, or the desire to figure it out becomes the focus, as opposed to just doing things. Like there is a degree of limitation in that capacity where if you're focused on measuring how things are going or thinking about how things are going or how you're doing, then you're not going to be able to put as much energy into doing and just doing without so much regard. So it's like, yeah, you know, check in, tap in here and there once in a while, but at the same time, like, just do.
Exactly. Okay, so that's the thing. It's like it's good to check in with yourself from time to time, or, and this is just an alternative, be responsibly aware. That's really it, right? Like we have this tendency of saying like, oh, I have these habits to deal with. But as we talked about, a habit is really just an action you keep taking now. So there's actually a danger in saying it's a habit to some degree because you're reinforcing that it is rather than a choice now. Right. And so this was something I ran across the other day, and God bless his heart. It's not something that often happens, but I disagree with our friend Cameron Rosin. He made a video talking about like when you get up in the morning, don't reach for your phone because then it's establishing the flow of the day. Fuck that noise. My phone is a piece of fucking matter. It doesn't define shit at all about my life. I picked up the phone, motherfucker. Like, I'm still defining the flow. You can't do that. Like, you could do that about, oh, don't set your alarm in the morning. It's defining the flow for you. It's like, you're not in control. It's not about you defining the flow. Like, everything is part of the fucking flow, including you looking at your phone. The only question is, are you aware and responsible when you're picking up that phone? Or are you doing it because you don't feel good? Is it a reaction to a feeling? Right? And that's when you should keep yourself in check. Oh shit, I'm giving in to my feelings again. I'm just trying to feel better. Oh, I'm trying to feel more secure, certain. Oh, I'm distracting myself from the day. You can do that. Or you could be responsibly aware, in which case everything you do each and every moment is your choice. And there's no right or wrong choice so long as it is your choice. And you are taking responsibility for it. So if you're picking up your phone in a state of responsible awareness, you're not getting lost in doom scrolling. Perhaps you're learning something new. Perhaps you're taking in new perspectives. Perhaps you're picking up something else. There's a million different things you could learn from picking up your phone, depending what you're doing with it. But the idea that something else defines your flow is just more victim thinking.
Very much so. And it's like investing in that desire for control, like there to be a right and a wrong thing to do when that doesn't exist, because the alternative is always that here and now responsibility for me and what's going on. Because yeah, like there's absolutely nothing in objectivity that says picking up your phone is a definitely bad thing, like whatsoever. It's not even close to scientifically proven. There's no guarantee of what you do on your phone when you wake up. Like, what if say hypothetically, all of your work is done on your phone? You wake up, grab your phone, and start doing work, and then you work for 3 hours, and then you go back to bed, and then you go do something else, and then it's like there's no. It's such an interesting settling upon this is the right and this is the wrong, because the alternative is you making a choice for you here and now. And the habit thing is, I would say, a massive avoidance of responsibility, even. And it's brutal, like even saying that I have a habit of doing something is just a fucking excuse.
But there's a
It's
spectrum there. I'm going to
okay. All
interject
right. All
because
right. All
it's
right.
really important to understand that admitting that you are habitually making a decision here and now isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing because you're recognizing the repetition of it. But to justify it as a habit can become a danger. To recognize you're doing something repetitively is different than going, and therefore I'm going to keep doing it because I have a habit. And it's just very different in terms of what you're willing to question. But that's a spectrum. It very much is in terms of just growth and a willingness to get there. You are going to benefit from recognizing that repetitive behavior. It's, as always, it's a difference between what you do with it. Always. It's always that.
Yeah, it's just that. It's the recognition is enough, and as soon as it's more than that, then it's like it starts to tip over the other side, and it's recognizing it. Oh, that's something I do, because it can so quickly and easily turn into just more self-judgment and loathing. Almost, it's like a split second. Not to say you got to catch anything, but be able to recognize something without judgment is a practice in a sense. Yes and no, because it's still just you recognizing it right now and you not judging yourself right fucking now. And there's not this whole span and timeline and things playing out in sequence or becoming or turning into. It's just like that fucking razor's edge of this, and anything that we want to be self-defining about is an avoidance of changing it right now. And as soon as it's recognized, like, you have the opportunity to shift it. And it's like there's a chasm almost in that, where I don't want to jump over it to changing, because that changes a component of how I see myself in whatever way, shape, or form that I've grown to see myself. It's like there is a shift as habits are recognized, because habits are a component of me. Like, I am my assumptions, my habits, my opinions, all those things. So as those start to shift or be let go of or questioned or looked at, then it's not just changing a habit. It's you're changing and you're shifting. So of course there's going to be some things that come up, or some feelings that you have about it, or some desire to avoid it. But you continue to experience the consequences. I continue to experience the consequences. So if I don't act on that, then there is going to continue to be the consequences. But once you see it, it's like you're allowed to shift that and let go and change. And the craziest part is that changing is, as much as it seems like this chasm, this discomfort, it's actually relaxing you more, like giving you more of an ability to relax as you allow that change to play out. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad or wrong or negative or whatever assumption you want to make about it, because it isn't at all. Like, you can let yourself change, and recognizing that habit can allow you to change and gives you the opportunity, at the very least.
I want to take a moment here just because we have some things to celebrate. I'm very excited about. There are only 15 semi-private tickets left for the Netherlands, which means that we are over half sold out on this event. Very excited about this. I have great news, though. One of the people who purchased the third floor ticket, or one of the third floor tickets, because there are 2 shared rooms on the third floor. These tickets are less than $2,000. This includes your meals for the week and all of the party accessories. Let's just say these tickets are we're really excited to be able to offer these tickets on the third floor. Well, one of our guests is upgraded to a semi-private room as of yesterday, and so we actually have one more third floor bed available. So if anybody would like to join us, definitely consider coming to the Netherlands retreat. This is November 11th to November 19th. This is a full retreat, as you can tell from the length of this retreat. We haven't done one of these since April of this year. We've done 2 previously, and we've done a bunch of mini retreats, but this is the full game. This is the absolute full experience of sharing the universe with Andrew and I, being in eternity with us for an extended period of time, eating some awesome food, having incredible conversation, and being surrounded by just beautiful scenery. If you haven't checked out the details, do check out the details on the website, dualisticunity.com. So I wanted to say that quickly. Secondly, as Andrew and I have been putting in a lot of work into making this possible over the last week, you can now listen to the Dualistic Unity podcast ad-free on Apple Podcasts. There is a subscription offer now, monthly fee, and there are no more ads. And you are supporting the podcast through that monthly fee. You're helping out in terms of keeping us going, helping us provide resources for the community, helping us plan more events. Because, of course, now after the Netherlands, we're thinking about a music festival or a concert, probably in California. We're going to make that something that's, I guess we'll explore that on Patreon in the near future. But the Netherlands retreat and Apple subscriptions, just incredible. And lastly, we're over 1 million views. Since the beginning of the Dualistic Unity podcast, we have had more than 1 million plays of all of our episodes. Thank you so much to everyone who's been making this podcast what it is, who's been helping the community grow, who's been telling people about it, regardless of how they might feel about you telling them about it, because I'm aware that conversation is not always welcome or expected from people who are just going about their average day-to-day life trying to be better than everybody else. And so we really appreciate the ripple that you are and just how quickly this is all growing. It's just fantastic. We appreciate you being here.
Fuck yeah. Appreciate you very much. It's been quite the journey, and it's only getting, I feel like it's just getting started every couple weeks. Get that feeling that it's just getting started. But yeah, that Netherlands retreat's gonna be fucking something else. I'm very excited. I'm having a lot more fun with with all of this. If you know, couldn't tell, because yeah, it's so funny how much it just comes down to my own perception of what's going on and what I think I'm dealing with. And there's like a assumption and prior, like that thing we were talking about yesterday with prioritizing the entirety of you and being willing to utilize, not take yourself so seriously. Like, I've had so much resistance to letting go, in the sense of, like, I take myself very seriously, and I took myself very seriously. And like, to the point that it's like I never allowed myself to stumble, like never allowed myself to run fast enough to fall, in a sense. Like, been at like a walking pace, or maybe a jog pace. But that feeling when you're just, especially like going down a hill, and your legs are just turning, and like you're gonna fall, and it's gonna happen. But there's nothing wrong with falling. You don't have to judge yourself for falling. And it's like, oh gosh, it's so funny how it's funny, and also, I don't know, I guess understandable and crazy and absurd, just how, like, the degree to which you can take yourself seriously out of fear of something that you can't even know. Like, I was straight up, I've been seeing myself from so many different perspectives. And like, one of those solo thing episodes I did, I was rewatching a little bit of one, and I was like seeing myself as a different person. Like, I was looking at myself and seeing, oh, that's not how I see myself, and even how I look, sound, act isn't seen in the same way. Like, I was looking at myself and like didn't recognize, or it was almost like seeing an old friend, and a friend that I beat the fuck out of for a long time. Like that hit me too, how poorly I treat myself. Like, how brutally, terribly. And if I had a
Can you
friend
imagine
who
treating someone else like that?
I couldn't at all. Like, a constant, it'd be like, fuck off. What the fuck are you doing? Why are you such a piece of shit? Like, holy shit. I was seeing that like, oh my God, I could be a little easier on myself.
You and everyone else, buddy.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's
It's
crazy. It's crazy what we say to ourselves.
it's fucked. And there being no guarantee. What so even in things like because I knew as I was talking through this like 20-minute thing episode I recorded, like I knew some of the stuff that was going on in my head or like things I thought as I was thinking and speaking. And there was a point where I was just like kind of got to the end of my spiel and or like kind of forgot what I was saying in the moment. And as I was watching it, I knew that's what was going on in my head, but I could not see it in my face. Like when I paused, it just seemed like a casual pause to ponder something. Meanwhile, I knew in my head that I was going through this whole whirlwind, and yet there's no indication. So even as I'm living my life, as things are going on in my head, there's no indication that any of that is being seen whatsoever. And so I'm fearing a thing happening that isn't even guaranteed to be recognized, even if I look at it in that way. Even if something plays out and I judge myself, there is no indication that anyone else even saw it. Like, even saw it, like, obviously saw it in the sense of how I saw it, but no one sees things like I do. So they don't even see my life as I see it happen at all. That is fuck. So like I'm really, really alone in my perspective because I don't even know what someone sees as I am in an interaction. Like I don't know what they're hearing. I don't know how they're perceiving it. I don't know how they're looking at me or seeing me. I have no idea, even to any degree. Like I was watching this video and I started to see my face like change. It started to change and be seen. And I was like, oh, there's no guarantee that I'm even seen in the same way by anyone else. Like there is no guarantee of any other perspective to any varying degree whatsoever. And so it is all just me. It is all just my judgment. It is all just my assumption. It is all just being maintained by me right now. And there's no guarantee of even the tiniest smidge of it beyond myself.
I would like to say this with a certain degree of confidence after thinking about this for over half my life. There is, in fact, one thing that you can guarantee people are not seeing: you. They just can't. They can't, no matter. And I'm pretty good at reading people in the moment. When I'm talking to somebody, I'm pretty good at picking up their cues. I'm pretty good at feeling where they're at. That doesn't mean that I can in any way know everything that brought them to that moment. Right? Like we're so quick to look at somebody's reactions and not understand that those reactions stem back a long way from a lot of other assumptions. People are really complex. People are really complex. And it's really just the fact that I want to feel like I know them that convinces me I do. That's all it is. I want to feel that people are judging me because that validates the fact that I'm afraid. Right? That's it. Like I'm afraid. There's got to be a reason. It's like, no, you're just afraid. There's just fear. It's always there. You can turn it towards anything, but you're always going to make an assumption that that's something to be afraid of. You're never going to know until it pops up, and then you're likely going to get through it. But people, we don't know them. We don't know who they are. This is the problem, is that we make assumptions about people, not recognizing exactly that their life is as complex as ours was and is. There's so many twists and turns, but again, it really comes down to whether or not you're willing to accept that you are such a complex being. Right? Can you accept that nobody can possibly understand where you're coming from? And in that, empathize with the fact that everybody's in the same boat?
Oh man, that's a great question. I mean, oh God, like it's unreal how much of a constant thing that is to try and do, but everyone's going through it, and it's interesting realizing that, because I've realized before, I felt like I realized before, like, no one else is thinking about you as much as you think they are, things like that. But it's like that runs deep to the point that, like, they're never actually seeing you. Like, the you that you are cannot be seen in any way, shape, or form. So there isn't, so any desire to be
I can see
seen in a
that though.
certain way. Yeah. Yeah. And so any desire to be seen in any way, shape, or form is just, an investment in control, like an investment in being seen in a way that you think is best, that isn't even remotely, it's not even like close to it. It's just not it at all. And there is no, and it does totally shift when you realize that, you're not just the you that you think, but I mean, you are, but you're not, but you don't have to put all the weight on that. Like, there is more of you going through degrees of the same exact things you're going through. And so it's not about not going through it. It's not about overcoming any of it. It's about just going through it, being in it, and, you know, bouncing around. Like, it's really not about getting out of anything. And I think that sometimes is what catches me, is like, I should feel better. Says fucking who? I should be better at this or better at that. And it's like, that's a lot of self-absorption. That's a lot of focus on this thing that you think you are. If you think you should be something else, it's like, you don't know that. And why are you so focused on that playing out in that way? Why is there so much emphasis? And of course, there's a lot of emphasis on that given, everything, but there doesn't have to be. There doesn't have to be there is a reality happening, and your focus can be placed into things outside of yourself. Like, majority of your focus can be on what is happening, as opposed to where you think you're at relative to what's happening, or where you perceive yourself to be, with this constant focus on some fucking idea that isn't even, like, when you look for it, it's not even there. It's like, I'm creating it as I go, but no one could even know your own idea of yourself that you maintain. And so there isn't anything, even the only one judging it is you. Ever. Ever. Like, there's a reality happening you can interact with when you're not trying to figure yourself out or figure out what's going on.
It's like carrying a really heavy backpack that's hitting you from time to time. When I run into people in general, when I run into anybody, I really treat them like they just wandered out of a desert, like into my little oasis, really. Because life is tough and complex, and there's no way that I could know what their journey was. None at all. But I know the nature of the journey. I understand the nature of uncertainty. I understand, the tendency we have towards self-judgment, towards assumption, towards wanting false certainty and all the consequence that goes with it. I understand how much that beats us down. And so I can relate to people on that, because I'm not looking with the assumption that I can know who they are or what they've been through. And that's where relationships become fresh in the moment. The conversation is able to be authentic, because you're not satisfying yourself with some sense of false safety. Oh, I know this person. I know what they would do. I know what they'd say. Oh, you don't know shit. You don't know shit. You could have known that person for 20 years. Doesn't mean they don't change, right? And in convincing yourself that they don't, you're doing them a disservice as well as yourself. You're just blinding yourself at the end of the day. We have about 5 minutes left here. So I wanted to mention, we have one ticket left for the Vancouver mini retreat. This is our last mini retreat of the year. I wanted to throw in that at this mini retreat, we're going to be recording an episode, and it's going to be a Q&A episode, because we haven't done one of those in a little while. So anybody who's coming to this retreat is going to be able to be in the audience for the episode, asking questions and being part of that episode. So if you would like to join us, there is one king bed left. Yes, it's a king bed, which means that you're going to be very, very comfortable. I believe there's an ensuite bathroom as well. This location is dope. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be taking walks down by the ocean. We're going to be walking into the forest. We're going to have a lot of weed and other things, and it's going to be just a fantastic time. So if you can join us, you won't regret it. Tickets are still available and will be for the next 2 weeks, but I don't know how long it's going to last. Usually somebody picks up these tickets pretty fast. But if you can join us, do.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hell of a time, and that house is pretty sick in the surrounding area. I mean, we were there a couple months ago. When is that? July. Yeah, and yeah, Vancouver is just absolutely beautiful. Vancouver Island is a whole nother world, but Vancouver itself is a gorgeous city. Like for a big city and the surrounding areas, it's like, damn. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and yeah, just a blast to hang and see everyone and bounce around and just enjoy.
Karaoke.
Fuck yeah, karaoke, baby. So yeah, this is it's interesting, the focus on what's real and what isn't, and the just that willingness. It's never about knowing more or understanding more. It's the willingness to not and just continue on and continue to be it, do it for yourself, for your experience that just so happens to be the entirety of what is. And yeah, it can be fun if you want to make it fun.
Yeah, there's a question. We'll address it quickly before we head out here. How do you deal with the anxiety related to being too aware of being alive and all? I would get rid of your opinion of being too aware. If there's anxiety, it's because you think you should be in control. The more awareness you subject yourself to, the less control there is, the less illusion of control there is, which means that you really just have to let go. The anxiety that goes with that is the shit that you're still picking apart. It's the triggers that are in the way. It's just parts of you that are afraid. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Point is just continue to let go. If you're afraid, it's because you're trying to feel in control. There is no control. Let go.
Yeah, and like this assumption that you should be different in that spot. You know, the feeling, whatever feelings come up, like this idea that there's a right way to feel if you're feeling more aware and whatnot. And then so certain things come up, and it's like, oh well, I shouldn't be feeling this because this isn't the right way to feel, because this isn't what enlightenment is, and this isn't my idea of feeling good and better and blah 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 blah. And it's really does, when you realize that there are things playing out and happening, like there's a role in a sense, and it's not something you could ever possibly know, but it's not about being this idea of what you think you should be. It's just about your willingness to play your role as willingly as you can, which is what you're always doing, what you're always going through, from the macro to the micro of the experience that you're having right now. Like a role is being played out. You don't know what it is. And so if you're able to just ride that thing, whatever highs and lows come up, whatever shit starts bubbling up, and maintain some degree of relaxation through it, like be willing to just continue on sometimes, even when it starts feeling turbulent. It's like you're still playing out that role. I know it seems really shaky and uncomfortable right now, but it's still being played out. And there's nothing besides your assumptions saying that there's anything wrong right now. Just your assumptions, just your discomfort and resistance towards, you know, the experience you're having. But things are playing out, and you can never know them, but you can have the faith that they're playing out and that you're being played out no matter where you go or what you do. And that then changes what gets played out.
Well, this is the end of our hour. God and the Devil signing off. I just wanted to mention very quickly that Andrew has a new standalone series that's coming up in the Dualistic Unity podcast. It's In the Mind of Andrew, just his ramblings as he goes through his own insights and whatnot. He's going to be sharing that with us while he is traveling over the next 2 weeks. We are not going to see him quite as often in the Patreon groups. He will show up from time to time, but aside from that, I'll be hosting the groups for the next couple of weeks with the help of Amanda and, of course, the community members who are always there to support us. We really appreciate that. But definitely keep an eye out for In the Mind of Andrew, because that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to listening to it myself.
Appreciate that. And I accidentally published one that I meant to post tomorrow and schedule, because I scheduled it and then I had to change some things and I added that Apple thing that I
Go check
posted.
that shit out.
Yeah. So I actually privated it again and scheduled it for tomorrow morning, but I think there was like 200 listens and I was like, oh shit. And I could have just left it, but whatever. So it'll be out, I think, tomorrow morning. And I just got them scheduled for the morning for the next week or two. And I'll keep just pushing out some of those to because I got shit's bouncing around. So it's I'll use that as an outlet for a bit.
Fuck yeah. No, I hear that. I look forward to it for sure. Everyone, if you can join us, we're going to be on Patreon in 14 minutes for a tier 2 call. You can get a 7-day free trial, patreon.com/dualistic unity.